I've painted over 325 animals so far in my full-time career as an artist. Today I want to share with you some of my best tips so that way you can learn how to choose the right reference photo and make better, more beautiful animal art easier and quicker. We're going to go over 3 key features of a good reference photo. I'm going to show you some of my reference photos and the paintings that I made from them as examples. So let's dive in. The first important thing to watch out for is how much breathing room you leave around an image when you crop it out. You can see this reference photo here I have of a moose that I really enjoyed painting, but the photo came with all of this extra area around here that I did not want in the painting. Now, if I was going to create something in these areas that I've covered in blue in the painting, then maybe it would be all right to leave in there, but I wanted to make a portrait. And you can see here that I left a little bit of breathing room around this image. Not a lot, not as much as that original photo had, but a little bit. So this way, when a person is wanting to mat this and frame this later, potentially if you make an art print out of your painting, they will have room to do so. And there's plenty of room for a signature. I like to think about these things ahead of time before I make the image, because let's say I would have cropped this in to where it was really close. Let's say like right here. That would have left me no room for matting or framing, and it wouldn't look nearly as good as how we have it here. And so then here is the finished painting that I made. You can see that I was able to paint it without cutting off any of the antlers outside of the frame. And of course, like I said, I had plenty of room to sign it, and it looks really good. Profile shots are very easy to paint. So if you're just starting out and you're wanting to learn how to paint a particular animal, painting in profile from the side view like this is oftentimes easier to achieve because you're only having to paint one eye, one nostril. Next, I want to show you an example of not leaving enough breathing room around a reference image. This is a photo of my mom's dog, Sage. I actually took this picture myself from a very low angle. I loved the photo, so I wanted to make a painting of this. But you can see in the photo, I mean, his head's cut off, his feet are cut off. He's just really squished in here. So then when I made the painting, I tried my best to leave a little extra space along the top and to add a little bit more of the feet. But since I didn't quite know exactly what his feet looked like, I didn't feel comfortable zooming out even further to add more room to the feet in these areas here. And so you can see how it feels very squished, but I have sold a lot of prints of this painting, so I take it as a success. But as an artist, it was much harder to work with this and make it not feel awkward because of the way these feet are right up against the edge and how his head is right up against the edge. It was really awkward to work with, but his cute face and big old nose you just want to boop makes it a beautiful painting in the end. But if I was going back and retaking this photo, which I can't, I mean, he's passed away, so this is what I have to work with. But if I could retake the photo, I would have gotten a little bit further away from him when I was taking the shot. So that way I could have seen all of the details of his feet, so I could have painted them correctly and just left a little bit more breathing room around him. Because if he had more room up here and more over here along the sides, it would have been better. The next key feature of a good reference photo is lighting and visibility. You can see in this wolf how its face is angled downward, right? Now, it would be better if its face was tilted up just slightly or looking directly at you. I find that if it's more tilted at an upward angle, it seems more hopeful and happy. This feels a little more down or just not activating. And if you want the mood of your painting to be down, sorrowful, something like that, then maybe a pose like this would be good. Or perhaps you had this as one component of the painting and the wolf was looking down at maybe a little mouse or something over here to try to catch or eat or hunt, and you wanted to tell a narrative, then this would be a good reference photo. But if you're just looking for a single portrait of a wolf, this isn't so good because of the position of the head. Now, moving on to this photo over here. This is my cat, Mr. Samadhi, when he was a kid, and it is so cute. I mean, he's super adorable. But the problem is these areas right here, his eyes, all of this shadow that you see that I just covered up in blue, it makes it so hard to see any of the details of his face. You can't see where his eyes merge into where his nose is. You can't see the details of his paw here. Now, if you wanted to paint it completely black, just like you see in the photo, then that would be relatively simple to do. You just cover the whole area in black. But personally, if I see a painting that's just really chiaroscuro, really covered in black, and there's a lot of white areas near it, I can't see the details, I don't really like the way that looks. At least it doesn't look good for my art. Now, some people, if you wanted a really moody, mysterious vibe, then maybe it would be a good thing. But either way, it's hard to get accuracy if you can't see the details well in your reference photo. So even though this is a super cute photo, it's not going to make the best painting. The next key feature that can really make or break your painting is composition choices that have to do with pose and movement. You can see here a picture of my kitty, Mr. Samadhi. He's laying on the printer in my studio looking super cute. But why this made an amazing painting, a very dynamic portrait, is that it has a couple of great things going for it when it comes to composition. You can see here that there is horizontal movement through here, and then there is a vertical movement through his paw. This gives you a vertical and horizontal armature to support the face, which is right over here in this side of the piece. And when you're thinking about this in your painting, you want to, of course, always have the eyes and the face as the focal point. But when people are looking here, then they decide maybe that they're going to look here, and this horizontal makes their eyes go through the piece, then up to the ears. You see the eye is bouncing all over the place. And this is really good. It makes an active, interesting piece for the viewer to look at. Likewise, there's a lot of movement in the pose of this reference photo. These two flamingos are so beautiful. What I love about this is that there are diagonals going through here. And this really creates movement. It makes your eye just bounce around the piece. So when you see the final result, the person who's first looking at it might be looking here, and then here, and then through here, and then back up like this. This is making it look active, interesting, dynamic. If you take these things into consideration, you make sure to choose a reference photo that doesn't have a lot of shadowy areas that you can't see, or like is really pixelated, really blurry or something. And then you also make sure there's some breathing room around it when you crop it, and perhaps even an activating pose, something that's going to be interesting for the viewer to look at. Then this is going to help you make so much of a better painting in the end. If you found this helpful and you want to learn how to trace your images on a canvas, I have a tutorial for that as well. You can check that out here. All right, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.